Hi everyone, my name is Mark Moikens from Big Mountain Studio, and today what we're going to do is take a look at the Zelda application, and we're going to create a pop-up when we click on one of these rows. And basically the way it's going to work is we just click on the row and it brings up this larger pop-up of the image and it puts the person's name up there, and then we can close it. And you can see that when we click it, it has a little bounce effect, so I'll show you how to do that too. So how are we going to do this? Because I created 2 other videos that showed you guys how to create modal pop-ups. No, I created 3 videos on how to do modal pop-ups. So this will be my 4th one on modal pop-ups. But it's going to be unlike the other videos because this is a new way to show modal pop-ups. And that is using the ViewController's scene dock. And what is a scene dock? It's basically this top portion right here. And you notice your ViewController is on the storyboard. This is actually your ViewController. But above it, you have what's called a scene. So in this top part, this white part, is the dock. Well, we're going to use this up here. And the way we do that is you basically just drag a UIView and you drop it in there. And then on this UIView, you can customize it and design it right here on the storyboard. And you can add multiple UI views here too. And you can position them and you can reposition them. You know, maybe let's give this one a different color. Okay. You want the yellow one first, so you put that one over here. And this really doesn't matter. It doesn't do anything. And then you can close them if you want to maximize some space or you don't really need to work with them. It doesn't delete them. To delete them, what you do is you select them down here and you just hit delete like that. And then you can just delete them all. So now another thing too is we have a view up here. And when you run the application, you don't actually see this view. Although you can create a reference to it and then you can add it as a subview to this existing view controller. And that's what we're going to do. So let's get started. First thing we want to do is we want to design this view. And you notice the other one that I created, it had an image on it, which was the image of the character, the Zelda character. So let's put a image view on here. And I'm just going to do it like that. And then it also had the person's name too, right? So we know we need a label. And it was like up here in the corner. Now what I'm going to do is this is the actual size of how it's going to appear when it's on here. So we can make it a little bit bigger, but we don't want to make it larger or else it will go off the edges of your scene there. So we'll just make it this big. And we'll give some constraints, so if it resizes, it'll stay in place. There we go, that should do it. So now if I resize this scene here, yeah, the image will resize with it. Okay, good. And the label, this position is okay to the top and to the left. And then what we want to do is we want to change this font. Let's match the font to the one that we're using here. And we're going to change this font to the same one. Make it custom. And it is, here we go right here, Modulo 1. Okay, you probably need it bigger than this. That might be okay right there. Okay, I'm going to hit Command equals to resize the label. And let's just stretch it all the way out to accommodate for different length names too. And if I do that, let's just put this on here too so it can stretch with the size of the view. So after I do that, you notice now the width stays in the same place when I resize the view. Okay, so we have everything in place, but now what I need to do is create outlets for these things. I need to create 3 outlets. I need to be able to reference this view, and I need to be able to reference these controls within that view. Oh, notice on that document outline too where it puts this. So the view is actually, it kind of makes sense. Like say this is your scene dock right here. You have your view controller, which you see right here, your first responder, and then you have your view, which is right here, and then your unwind segue or your exit. So it kind of makes sense of where it places it in case you need to look for it in the document outline. Okay, let's minimize this for a second. And let's go into here. And let's change this to automatic. Okay, there we go. Here's my view controller. And I'm going to hide that too. Alright, so I'm just going to create some outlets here. And I need one for the view. And I'm just going to call this the info view. And then we need one for the label. So I'll just grab this. I'll follow kind of like the naming convention I have. I'll just prefix everything with info. Just to keep it organized. Info image. All right, there we go. And what I'm going to do too is these outlets belong to this different view. So I'm going to put a mark on here just to let myself know that these belong to info screen. Like that. And all this does is it kind of creates like a separator like in your outline here. So you see where it says info screen? So it just lets you know that, you know, these things that come after that are part of the info screen. And what I could do is, you know, if I click on it, it just navigates to it. You can also put like a dash in there too. And that'll create a line, a separator. So if you go back in here, you see now there's like a line. That's because I put that hyphen in there, that dash in there. Okay, so we have our outlets. Now what we want to do is when we click on a row, we want to be able to show this a view and be able to assign the correct name and the correct image to it. But before I do that, let me just check something here. Whoops. I want to make sure that we have the right size because I'm kind of unsure about this size here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually give it an image. Like we'll just pick one of these guys here. And yeah, we can probably, let's see, scale to fill. Let's make it aspect fill. And yeah, let's make it a little bit taller here. Yeah, this looks fine right here. We'll just do something like this. And let's try other images, make sure it looks okay. Yeah, this looks okay. All right, great. And then I want to change this to, let's just make sure that this looks okay as well. Okay, I probably want to make that a little bit bigger. There we go, something like that. And yeah, I think that'll work. And let's just change the color too. Make it to like kind of like a, you know what color I want? I want that color that's on the website. So let's go check that out and see what that looks like. Okay, here we go right here. Like this golden color, that's the color I want right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on this, and then I can click this eyedropper tool. Here, let's just resize this real quick. I need to be able to see both at the same time. There. So I just click on this, I come over here, click on that, and there I have my color. Oh, it didn't work. So click on here, click on this. Okay, there's my color right there. Okay, good. And just to make sure that you can see it when it's on all different backgrounds, I'm going to give it a little drop shadow too. And I'll make it like a dark gray. That's too much. Yeah, it's fine right there. Okay, good. That should work. Okay, where were we? All right, we're going to, when we click on a cell, we want to be able to show that information. So right now I have the minimum set up for my table view. And notice I just have a data source set. Because really, when you create a table view and you're doing really simple things, you don't need a delegate. You only need two functions, two overrides. You need one that shows the number of rows in the section. And of course, you need one to get the cell and assign it some data. So in order to add the row selection, I need to add here a UITableView delegate. Right there. And so we have our delegate, and then I also need to use this class as my delegate. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Table view, there it is. And if you need more information on what delegates are and how they actually work, because I know you've seen this a lot, like this is a delegate and this is a delegate, and I'm assigning this class as these delegates for the table view. And basically what that means is the table view is going to be using this class to get some of its functionality. Like when the table view needs to find out number of rows in a section, it's going to use my function instead of its own function now. And when it needs to get a cell, it's going to use my function that I specify here instead of its own function. And the way I do that is I just pass in this class, which has the functionality it needs. And then when it comes time to do its own work on your UI, it's going to use your class to do some of the functionality instead of its own. And if you need more information on how delegates work, I create a video that will explain more in depth how that works. Okay, so what we want is we want table view. Just start typing in table view. And then we want the did select row. Yeah, I guess it's this first one right here. Okay, good. Now that we have that, we have to get the information from our model on which one was selected. Now, you know, the model is up here, table data. And table data is a collection of model data, so we're going to get one model data out of this collection. So I'll say let, and I'll just call it data, equals table data. And then we're going to use the index path row. So the index path row tells me which row I just clicked on. And when we populated this data, we used the index path to get a specific model data out of our collection here and pass it into the cell to get it set up. So we know the index path row matches up with the index of our model data. All right, so we got our data. So this is just one model data class that I have here. And then I can use that to set up my pop-up here. I prefixed everything with info, so I can just type in info. And I'll get the image and set its image property here, equals data.image. And just to look at this, how this looks again, what we can do is we'll just go into the model data here. I'll hold down command and click on model data. And it's pretty simple. It just has three properties: name, info, and image. We're just going to be using the name for right here and the image for the background. And then I want to set the info. We want to set the info name label dot text equals data dot name. All right, that's it. So now the next thing we have to do is we have to actually show this UI view. And to add it, now remember right now what I said before is that these UI views, they're not actually in this hierarchy of views. Like if we come here and we look at this, it's not actually in here. This right here, this view controller, this is what actually will get shown when your application runs, not this stuff right here. So what we need to do is we need to add this info view as a subview to this view right here. So essentially what we're going to do is take this and we're going to add it into here like this, so it shows up in our app. And the way you do that is you just go access the view, and remember view is this view right here, and we're going to add a subview. And we're adding the info view just like that. All right, let's see how that works. Okay, good. I have my information. I click on one, and it shows up. But let's take a look at this. What happened here? Now notice it's not in the center, because when you add a subview by default, it starts it up in a 00xy, so it puts it right up in the upper left-hand corner. So we need to fix that. And another thing too, in our pop-up, the image is flowing outside of the view, so we want to fix that too. Although this is kind of a cool effect, isn't it? Okay, well, we'll fix it for this video, but okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the image, and what's happening here is if you put a view inside of another view and it goes outside of it, it'll show it like it did here, but we want it to actually cut off. So what you have to do is there's a property for that. It's right here, clip to bounds. So what that'll do is anything that goes outside of the view, it's going to cut off. Okay, now another thing we want to do too is we want to center it. So what I can do is before I even add it, I can say the info view center equals the view's center. And that'll center it for us. So now let's run it and see how it looks now. Okay, so we click on something. There we go. So now it is centered. That looks good. And if we click on something else, we don't really have a way to close this yet, right? So we need to be able to do that too. But selecting it over on the side here seems to be working just fine. And looks like the letter's getting cut off at the bottom, so we'll have to make that bigger too. There we go. That should work. Let's stick that further up into the corner. Yeah, let's try that. Okay, so we need a way to close this view. And can you think of a way to do that? Yeah, we added a button, right? And it's centered. We just center it right at the bottom. And what I like to do is, it's pretty simple. This is a pretty quick way to like add a nice looking button. Is I have this designable X folder right here, and it's basically, if you've seen my other videos, you've seen where in the past we've created IB designables and IB inspectables, and what I do is I kind of like save them up and build on them as I go along. And I have a lot of different, these are all designables, and I have a lot of different ones for different controls. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the button one right here, and this allows me to be able to change something right in the storyboard editor and see the effect that it has without running the application. So it saves a little bit of time here. And I'm just going to put an X in there to symbolize that it's going to close. And then I'm going to change this type from a UI button to a UI button X and wait for it to update here. Okay, now if I come into the attributes inspector, you'll notice there's a whole section here of properties that don't really exist for the button normally in the attributes inspector. This is where the normal properties are. So I like to use these to quickly be able to set properties without having to code it. Because I've coded it once in it's a custom control now. So and I've coded it in that custom control. So for this button, let's set a size here. Let's make it 50 by 50. Like that. And normal default buttons are 44, because that's kind of like the size of a normal person's finger, I guess. That's Apple standard, is to make things 44 by 44 to fit a finger. So 50 by 50 is good. It's a little bit bigger. And once we have that, then we can set a border width. And you notice right when I click that, it added a border. But it's square, right? And the square kind of doesn't look all that good. Let's move this up a little bit here. So I'm going to give it a corner radius and make it a round button. And to do that, to make it a round button, you just take the width or the height and you divide it by 2. And you just set it like that. Now it's round. Sometimes I use square borders on buttons if they're longer and they have text in them. But for small buttons like this, I like to keep them round. And now we need a color too. So what color did we have in our finished product? Let's see. All right, in our finished product we had, okay, it was like a dark gray, and then it had a white fill to it. Yeah, let's do that then. Click on that button again. And for the border color, we'll give it a dark gray. And same with the tint color, we'll give that a dark gray too. That'll change the text here. Let's make that text a little bit larger. Yeah, that should do it right there. Maybe make it bold. Or medium. Yeah, that's fine. Really make it stick out. Okay, and one last thing. Let's see, it had a kind of like a white fill. So let's give it that on our background. Whoops. Oh man, does that drive anyone else crazy? How the scroll bar shows up and then you can't click on anything, like if I want to change the alpha, like I can't click on it because of that scroll bar. I have to wait for it to go away. That drives me crazy. And let's change that to white. It was kind of see-through, wasn't it? So let's change the opacity down here. There we go. All right, there's our close button. Now let's give it a way to close here. I'm just going to right-click it and drag it into here. I'm going to create an action. And for this, I'll just call it close info pop-up. Okay. I'm going to move this because I kind of like to keep all my table view functions together. So I'm just going to put this down here. And let's give ourselves some more room here. Okay, here we go. Now how do you close it? How do we get rid of it? Well, there's an easy way to do it. basically what you want to do is remove that subview. And to remove subviews, it's not, you don't do like, from the view. This is how you add subviews. You add subviews. So you might think that, okay, there must be a remove subview too. Well, the easiest way to do it though is to actually go into the thing that was added, and that has a function to remove itself from its parent or from its superview. The superview is the parent. That's the container that it's in. And all controls only have one superview. A view can have many subviews, but every subview can only have one superview, one parent. Okay, and that's what we're going to use. And that's it. That's how you remove it right there. It's pretty simple. Okay, so let's try that out, make sure it works. Perfect. Okay, that's fine. That works great. Okay, another thing I don't like is how this gets selected. Let's change that. I don't want it to be selected. I just wanted to be able to click it and then have it show up. This video became a little bit longer than I expected, so I'm going to cut it off right here. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to prevent the table view rows from being selected, and we're also going to add some animation to the pop-up to give it some bounce when it shows up. And we'll also go over how to use animation when closing the pop-up as well. And also, if you're interested in using the Designable X files, they're on my GitHub account. So I'll include a link in the description so you can go there and download the Designable X folder to include in your projects if you want to play around with it. All right, everyone, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and consider sharing it with your friends and subscribing. And the next video after this one should be coming out very shortly. Thank you.